Hi everyone. Welcome to today's session about maps for storytelling. My name is Rochelle Solomon, and I am a teaching fellow, a News Lab teaching fellow specifically for Canada. And I have teaching fellow colleagues around the world who are also hosting these live sessions in their respective languages for their respective countries or regions. So teaching fellows connect with journalists to talk about different digital tools that can help with reporting. And these particular trainings are part of our GNI Live series. And today's is our fourth GNI Live. In the chat, I've shared the site where you can watch the past sessions. And here you can also see that site on the screen. When you go there, just use the pull-down menu on the left side of the page, and you'll see upcoming as an option, and you'll see the different dates and topics for the next couple of weeks. And then you could also select past or on demand and watch the recordings of past sessions. You're going to have to register even for the past sessions, but once you register, you can watch and rewatch if you want, or share the links with people you might think will find them interesting as well. So News Lab teaching fellows also work one-on-one with newsrooms and offer customized trainings to individual teams. So with me in Canada, this is available in English or in French. So if your team is interested in setting something up one-on-one, just send me an email. You see my email address on the screen, and we'll see what we can get going. For those of you who speak French, or more comfortable in French, pour ceux d'entre vous qui parlent français, cette présentation se fera en anglais, mais si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez toujours les poser en français si vous voulez. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat, the YouTube chats. You'll have to open the YouTube link, and then you can participate in the chat there. What you're seeing on your screen now is our agenda. I'm going to take us through a demonstration of Google Earth, as well as the new Timelapse in Google Earth feature. Then we're going to do the same at a high level with Google Earth Studio. And we're going to end with a quick look at some of the map options that exist in a visualization tool called Flourish. We're not going to have time today to go into full detail with all of these different tools, but hopefully I'll show you enough that you'll want to follow the links and try the tools for yourself. They are all pretty cool. Mapping tools are really easy to get lost in, and you can have a lot of fun with them. So before we get started, just a little bit of background. The team that I'm part of, the Google News Lab, falls under the wider Google News Initiative, the GNI. And my role focuses on the first of the 3 E's that you're seeing on your screen. So to elevate and strengthen quality journalism. If you have questions about GNI programs and resources and different kinds of support that's available in Canada, that's the email address you're going to want to reach out to. That's the whole Canadian team, and we all filter what's coming into that email address together, and we'll figure out who's in a best position to answer your question. So gni-canada@google.com. Again, I am in Canada, so regardless of where you may be joining us from today, that is specifically for Canadian news publishers. The tools we're going to be talking about today, though, are all accessible to anyone online. And the Journalist Studio website is a hub of online tools for journalists. Also on this site, you'll find a link to a dedicated training website. And there are courses here that guide you through how to use different digital tools that are useful in a journalistic context. You might actually recognize many of them from your daily life. But what's great about these courses is that they show you how they can also be useful to journalism. There are several languages available for the courses, including French. And this is all self-guided. So you can choose the tools that you're most interested in and then work through the material at your own pace. Sincerely, when it comes to map tools, there are so many different options from Google alone. And using a map to tell or help tell a story can be so effective, whether it's to situate what's happening and give it context, or to bring an idea or a topic or a narrative to life. A map, it could also be an interactive element to help your reader or audience engage with a story or report in a different way. So again, together we're going to look at Google Earth and Google Earth Studio from this long list. But if you are new to using maps for storytelling, I do think that Google My Maps, the one you're seeing at the top, it is a really good place to start. And so while we won't go through how to make one today, I wanted to show you this just as a reference for what a My Map is. So a Google My Map allows you to plot different points right on a Google map. A Google map you're probably really familiar with for looking for directions on a daily basis. So what you're seeing now is a map that was made to show Ontario locations offering the COVID-19 vaccine. This is a bit outdated since things are changing very quickly, but it's a good example of what a team could create and continue to add to over time. So on a My Map, you can customize the little pegs to be different colors, different sizes, different icons. You could draw lines and shapes. You can add photos and links. Links are especially useful in a situation like this for a COVID vaccine location. If you have a really large data set, you can import spreadsheets right into the map and plot locations by example, for example, in one big batch. If you have a smaller data set, you could just place the pegs yourself, drag and drop. And then the user can click about as if they were in a regular Google map, but they are clicking about through the different reference points that you've plotted. So My Maps are used for all sorts of different projects. This is an example a team recently shared with me after a training session we had together about My Maps. So it's from Distance Plus, and they're a magazine website about running, specifically trail running, and they have team members in Quebec and in France. And they had an article about some trails around Paris that they wanted people to check out. And along with that article, they published this My Map. So you can see how when you click through their map, you see the different information panels about those different locations. So that's just one example. There are so many different things you could do with My Maps, and this was a very, very fast overview, but I really wanted you to have an idea of what's possible. Google Earth takes what's possible with maps even further. And there are different versions of Google Earth. We're going to be looking at the web version together today. So Google Earth lets the user use the Earth as a canvas, and this allows you to also tell an interactive story. So it goes far beyond a regular map. It combines aerial photography, satellite imagery, 3D topography, geographic data, and street view. It's all web-based, and that means there's nothing to download to get started, and it's also free to use. So we're going to open Google Earth together in a moment, and we'll see how there are so many different ready-made projects that allow you to explore the world. And these are organized around different themes and stories. And when I say you can get lost in the map products, this is an example of where you could definitely get lost just looking at all the different samples. It's all possible to create these stories ourselves because of something called creation tools. And creation tools mean that someone who wants to create a map like this no longer needs to use coding to help tell a story within the tool. Anyone can just click and drag elements and create something that's both useful and, as you'll see, quite compelling. So one of the first stories that was told using Google Earth when creation tools became available a few years ago was part of the Finding Home project. Finding Home is an interactive multimedia story about Syrian refugees. And one of the elements of this interactive multimedia story was a Google Earth map. So this map tells the story of a family of Syrian refugees as they left Syria, had a child, and moved to Europe. The project is still available online. You could see it and scroll through it yourself on Google Earth. What I'll do is I'll drop the link in the chat so you can take a look on your own time. There we go. So you navigate through the different panels using the blue arrows at the bottom of the screen. And we'll see how that function is similar when you create your own project. All right, so let's open Google Earth together. I have it open right here on my screen. And the first thing I want to show you is a function called Voyager. So you see this little navigation wheel, like a ship's wheel? We're going to click on it. And here are so many examples of different types of Google Earth projects that you can explore. Let's visit this one, cherry blossoms around the world. Start exploring. And as you can see, Earth is going to take us to all these different places where the project wants us to visit to see different cherry blossoms. We're going to use the blue arrows to move from one location to the next. So this is the type of project you can create yourself using this tool. Before we create our own example project, some other features to show you about. The little magnifying glass lets you search and go anywhere in the world. This button, the square, it's called I'm Feeling Lucky. And if you click it, it will take you somewhere random in the world just to check out. So right now it took us to a mountaintop in Switzerland. If we click it again, where are we going to end up? Somewhere in Turkey. So really, you could just go crazy playing with going to all kinds of different places in the world and exploring new places. The next button on the left, the projects button, we're going to come back here in a moment to create our new project. Then there's a map styles button. We're in Italy right now. So you have all these different options for what is actually going to display on your map. You can have a clean map, which means you're not going to see any borders, labels, places, or roads. Exploration, as you're seeing, just added some road names. Everything, adding even more information. And then there is the option to customize what you're going to see on your map. Let's stick with a clean map. Let's go back. The last feature to show you here is that the little ruler allows you to measure distances on the map. But let's go up to the projects button and create a new project together. We have the option to create a project in Google Drive or to create a KML file, which is a map file that we could save to our computer locally. But let's create a project in Google Drive. I thought as an example for a project, we could create something that mapped the different monuments across Canada that are dedicated to Terry Fox. And whether you're joining us from Canada or not, you've probably heard of Terry Fox. He set out to run across Canada in 1980 with his Marathon of Hope to raise money for cancer research. And while he was too sick to continue his full journey, there are now Terry Fox runs around the world, and every year they're raising millions of dollars for cancer research. So I thought let's look at the different monuments that are across Canada, and let's see them on a map. So the first thing we're going to do is give our map a title. Click the little pencil, which allows us to edit our project. So let's call it Terry Fox Monuments Across Canada. Perfect. And then let's add a little description. From coast to coast, there are monuments and memorials to honor Terry Fox. Great. So let's add the first element to our map, our first location. We're going to click New Feature, search to add place. And I've already done my research, and I know that the first place that I want to plot on my map is the Terry Fox Memorial in St. John's. And there it shows up in the searches, in the search results. And let's let Google Earth take us there. So here we are in St. John's. We can navigate this map in all kinds of different ways. And depending what kind of computer you're using, the shortcuts for navigating the map are different. You could use your mouse or you could use your keyboard. I'll drop the shortcuts link in the chat right now so you can familiarize yourself with whatever device you're using or your preference for using a mouse or the keyboard shortcuts. So let's say we're happy with this view. We've moved it around a bit. We see that an information panel has automatically generated. We can choose to edit this or to leave it as is. Let's leave it as is for now. And then all we have to do is click Add to Project. We're going to save this as Terry Fox Memorial. Let's add St. John's, Newfoundland to it. Make sure we're adding it to the right project and simply click Save. And then you can see we've added the first element to our map. Well, let's add another element, and this time let's actually see the monument, because from here it's a nice aerial shot, but let's say we actually want to see the monument itself. What we could do is leverage Street View imagery. So like in a regular Google map, you might recognize this little peg man. And if we click on this little peg man and we drag it over our map, we see the different blue lines light up as well as blue circles. Now, blue lines represent where Google Street View has captured images before. So maybe you've seen in the past one of those cars with all the cameras drive by on the top. So that's a Street View capturing device. And that's the imagery you're seeing with the blue lines. The orbs you're seeing, these circles, are photospheres that a user will have generated and added to the map. So someone like me and you who thought, oh, this would be a good photo to include on a map. I see there's a little orb here near the memorial. So let's drop our peg man here and see what that looks like. It's actually a really nice photo. So let's position the photo that we want to capture to add to our story. We have two options for capturing this image. We can go back to New Feature and click Capture Street View, or we can go down to the bottom of our screen in the bottom left, and it says Capture this view. Let's use this one. So capture this view. Let's give it a title, maybe Street View, St. John's. And we're in the right project, save. And as you can see, the second point has been added to our project. Well, let's add another location. There are monuments to Terry Fox right across the country and across the world, I imagine, but this is in Canada for right now. Let's add a new feature, and let's search to add our next place. Our next location is the Terry Fox statue in Victoria. There it is on Douglas Street. So let's click. And Google Earth will take us all the way across the country to Victoria. Fabulous. All right, here we are. I want to take this opportunity to show you how you can draw a shape or a line in the tool. It's quite easy, and it can be really effective to highlight a certain area. So if you go down to the left of your screen, you're going to see this little draw line or shape. Click on it, drag your mouse over where you want to start drawing your line or shape, and simply click. And click again, and click again, until you are drawing the line or shape that you want. So in this case, I thought, let's outline the park where the monument is located. To close the shape, I just find the first one that I had started with. I had looked this up before. This is actually Beacon Hill Park in Victoria, British Columbia. And we're in the right project. We can save this, of course, but I'd like to also show you that you can edit and customize what you're doing. We would have the option here, as you can see, of adding a photo to go along with this point on our map. We can add description. We could add one of those info boxes on the right side, a small one, a large one, or none at all. Let's leave it at none for now. We can change the color of our line, the width of our line, the fill of our line, and the opacity of that fill. So let's say we want something that looks a little like this. It's all saving automatically. You just have to go back and continue working. So let's do what we did last time and also get a street view of the actual statue that is in this park. So what we can do again is go grab our little street view pegman, hover it over the map, and drop it where we want to find a street view image. Scroll around. I think we can find something better. Let's try again. Drag our little pegman, aiming for one of those closer photos. Here we go. That's great. So last time we captured the image using this button at the bottom left of our image. Let's now try the new feature, Capture Street View, and let's give it a name, Street View in Victoria, BC. We're in the right project, and save. Wonderful. Something else I want to show you is that at any point you can edit any of these points that you've added to your map. So we can use the little pencil edit feature, and we have the opportunity now to edit the peg, whether it's the size we want to change, or the icon that lives within the peg itself. We can also add an info box if we want, large or small or none at all, as well as description where you could put all kinds of links and different information and photos. The last element I want to show you is to create a cover slide. So we're going to go to New Feature, Full Screen Slide. And here we should give it a title, because it's going to be the cover page to our project. So Terry Fox, Monuments Across Canada. You could add description and links like in the other edit options. But here, let's make sure we add a cover photo. And you can grab a photo from many different sources. But I have one saved locally to my computer that I checked and I have permission to use publicly. So there we go. It's been added, all auto-saving. Let's go back. And we have all the different elements that we've created. When you hover over each element, you can also see that you get these two little lines, which allows you to click and drag to reorder anything. So what I'm doing now is bringing that cover slide to the beginning of my presentation. I think we've got enough that we can now present and see what we've created. So here's our cover slide, and I'm going to use these arrows to click through my project. We're going to go all the way back to St. John's. If I click, we're now at the monument. Click again. We're going to go right back across the country. There's the park. And we can go right in and see that last monument. So let's go back to our projects page. If you're finished and happy with what you've done, of course, in this project, we'd want to build it out a bit more, but let's assume we're finished. You're going to want to share your project. And the way to do that is to go up to the little Share Project button that looks like a little person and click on it. You can share with an individual person or a group of users, or you could create a public link. And you could link this on top of a piece of copy in your article, or maybe on top of a still image. Unfortunately, there isn't currently a way to embed a Google Earth project directly on your website the way you can do with some other Google Maps. So you have to find this more creative option of making it accessible to your audience. You could also export your project as a KML file, and this would allow you to use it, for example, as an overlay in Google Earth Studio, which we're going to see soon. So it really depends what you're building and trying to achieve with your project. So Google Earth has been around for the past 15 years. But if you wanted to access historic imagery, you had to go through a different Google Map program. It didn't live within Google Earth itself. But there was an update just this month that now allows you to see time lapses and look at how the surface of the Earth has changed. And you can do this all within Google Earth itself for the very first time. So here's an example of what that looks like if you search for Dubai on your map. If you watch the bottom left, you can see the year changing from 1984 and scrolling till 2020. And Timelapse in Google Earth, this feature brings together 24 million satellite photos from the past 37 years. There are different ways to explore the time lapses, so I'll take you through some of those different options. It is important to remember that time lapses use a lot of bandwidth. So depending on your device and depending on the internet, it could take a long time for the imagery to load and to focus. So I am imagining it's going to look a little bit fuzzy as part of my screen shares, and hopefully it will be crisper when you log in and try this all yourself. Okay, so there are two ways to use search to explore time lapse. Let's go back to our Google Earth that's open. And the first way is to just use that magnifying glass we saw at the beginning and to search for a location. So let's search for Toronto. Google Earth will bring us there. And then all we want to do is look at the bottom left of our screen for this little clock. And if we click on the little clock, we can have access to imagery from 1984 all the way to 2020. We can also let this play and watch that transformation from image to image and year to year. If you watch around here, you'll see the Highway 407 appearing and disappearing. So the other way that you can use search to explore time-lapse within Google Earth is to go back to our Voyager navigation wheel. You're going to, at the top, select Layers, and then select Time-lapse in Google Earth. This panel on the right opens up, and all you have to do is look for the magnifying glass again, and you can search the same way we searched in the search bar to the left of the screen. The other way to explore time-lapse is under the Stories tab. So we have Stories selected here. And these are different ready-made time-lapse stories from Carnegie Mellon University. And they allow us to explore how the planet is changing. So you can see the different categories: changing forests, fragile beauty, warming planet, sources of energy. Let's click on sources of energy. And then you can move around the world, clicking on the arrows at the bottom of the screen again, and visiting different places and different stories about sources of energy. We're in Wyoming. We can then go to Virginia, and so on. And if you continue to click through this story in particular, you'll eventually get to an example from Canada, which I've screen captured here. Still a bit fuzzy, but you know, it's kind of the beast of doing a screen share. And this is an example from the tar sands in Alberta. So you can see the time lapse running from 1984 to 2020. The other way to explore time lapse is using the Featured Locations tab. So it's right beside the Stories tab we were just in. You click on Featured Locations, and then there are 10 categories here. You can see from agriculture, glaciers, megacities, natural disasters, and I selected urban growth. And under that category, there's this example for Sherbrooke, Quebec. And I promise it will be crisper and clearer if you open this up in your own browser. You can see the timeline running here, and you have the ability to pause and play. There are also more than 800 time-lapse videos available for download. These are free. They're ready to use as MP4 files. And attribution for using videos like this is, of course, very important to keep in mind. So we can look at this together. I have that site open right here in this tab. You can see that you can search for videos by different themes, by different regions. Let's go to North America, and let's search for Winnipeg. So we can now play a 3D or a 2D video of the time lapse for Winnipeg. And the last thing I want to show you on this page is a mention of attribution. So you go back to the top, learn more about how to use this page and requested attribution. Here we go. And here's the note that you're going to want to include if you do decide to publish or use any of these videos. So that is Google Earth and Google Earth Time-Lapse. Google Earth Studio, which we're now going to see, allows you to take the mapping options and opportunities even further. So this builds a lot on what we saw in Google Earth, but Google Earth Studio is an animation tool, and it allows you to create broadcast quality videos. So a few things to mention before we jump into Google Earth Studio. You are going to have to fill in a form to gain access to this tool, but once you're in, you're in. And the other important thing to mention is that it's very cool. The tool is web-based. but you must be working in a Chrome browser. So Google Earth Studio uses Google's catalog of satellite and 3D imagery. And the animations you can create, I imagine, could be especially useful for something like establishing shots, or for B-roll for broadcasters, or for various video projects. I want to play you all a video that was all made using Google Earth Studio. And in case there is a lag for how it's displaying for some of you, I'll also share the URL in the chat so you can watch it later on your own time. But here's that video.
U.S. Women's National Team will be celebrating their record-setting third Women's World Cup trophy in the 5 boroughs, with the ticker tape parade later today in Lower Manhattan.
It's pretty impressive, right? I certainly cannot make animations like that yet, but there's a lot that's possible with only knowing some of the basics. It will, of course, be easier to use if you are familiar with video editing software, but it can also be learned from scratch, and there are templates that can really help you get started quite quickly and make things that are really effective. So let's open Google Earth Studio together. I have it open on my tab. If you're using it for the first time, you'll see that you have the option of a blank project or to open a project. If you click on a blank project, you have the option of quick starts, and that's what we're going to do because these allow us to use some ready-made templates. So here are the templates we can pick from: zoom to, orbit, point to point, spiral, and there's another one over here called fly to an orbit. And you're going to recognize these movements, these camera movements from the video, the demo video we just saw together. Let's click on zoom to and then select start. All right, so I was thinking as an example, we all recently turned to Prince Philip's funeral. It was everywhere, all over the news, and I thought, well, imagine we were in a newsroom and we were looking for some B-roll to put ahead of a report about the funeral, and we wanted to situate where it was being told. So let's search for the location of the funeral, which was St. George's Chapel. There it is. And right away, the tool brings us to that location. To move around in Google Earth Studio is a lot like moving around in Google Earth. So that shortcuts guide that I posted earlier in the presentation will be useful for you to figure out how to use your mouse or how to use your keyboard to navigate through the tool. So here I'm just dragging to the view that I want that lives within here, the part that's not a little bit darker of your screen. Now that we have it positioned the way that we want our view to look, we just click the arrow to go next. And we're brought to an option to now select our starting altitude. We certainly don't need to start out so wide. So let's come in closer to Europe and the UK, maybe somewhere around there, and then select our next to move on. And right away, you see we've created, with the help of a template in this case, an animation that really could be used on the news this evening. Let's expand this to 10 seconds because 5 seconds does feel a little bit fast. So when we're happy with that, we would click the check mark and the editor opens. So to familiarize yourself a little bit with what's happening here, It is similar to many video editing softwares, maybe even a little more pared down, making it user-friendly for those of us who are newer to editing video. So at the top, you have your play controls, which are pretty standard. Play, next frame, jump to the end of the workspace or to the beginning. Here we have our timeline with this playhead, which is red, which allows us to move through the video that we created. And then on the left, we have different attributes. These can be edited individually or all together using this button, keyframe all attributes. There are additional attributes as well under this menu. Camera target is the only one we have selected, and you do see the little camera target on our location. But there are different ones you could add to your editor. One that I really like is time of day, because you can actually set the actual time of day, and through your video have the sun rise and set, or set and rise, and make some really beautiful visualizations. But for now, let's just leave the camera target selected and click done. So here is the video we've created so far. There is nothing wrong with it. We could certainly use this, but let's say we do want to customize it a little bit. What we can do is drag our playhead to these last set of keyframes, and let's move the map maybe to a different perspective. Let's tilt it like that. We're going to come back to this button, keyframes all attributes, click it, and that view has now saved as part of our video at this time code. Let's drag our playhead to the end, and let's say we want to actually end maybe a little zoomed in like this. Yeah, that looks good. Let's then go back to this button that would control all the different points that are editable. Keyframes, all attributes, click it, and it's saved in the sequence here. Now let's play back and see what we've done. So here's where our original video ended, but we now made it so it zooms in and lands there. So you can see that even using a template with very few changes, we're able to make something even more customized that maybe fits our needs a little bit better. Clearly, there is so much more you can do with this tool, but the templates make it possible that these small adjustments make something that maybe works better for your team. And it's also a great way to get familiar with how things work if you've never used editing software before. So when you're done, let's say we are pleased with what we've created, you're going to want to go up to the render button. And something to point out here is this attribution position. So you see the attribution here? You can move it all around the screen, wherever you might want it. Let's leave it on the bottom right. The other thing you're going to want to do is give a title to your project and select the destination of where the project is going to save. Now, when you're rendering a file, when you're saving a file, you aren't going to be saving a video file. You're going to be saving a series of JPEGs, so still images. And these will need to then be brought into other software to be assembled into a video format. So hopefully in the future, there will be an option to export directly as a video file. It's just not available yet. So something to keep in mind when you're rendering. The rendering will take some time. Do not close the tab, leave it open, and let the tool finish what it's doing. So once you've rendered, this is what your folder will look like. Hundreds, if not thousands, of individual image files. And assuming you don't have professional software, you want to check if your computer came with a program that can assemble images into video files. Some do, some Windows programs do, or you could find a program to use online. So that has been extremely quick look at what Google Earth Studio can do. To end today's session, I'd like to take a quick look at other mapping options that are available. In this case, using a tool called Flourish. So Flourish is a tool that was created to make visualizations more accessible to anybody. And there are so many templates that it can sincerely be quite overwhelming. As you can see, lots of options. The idea here is that a journalist can add the necessary data to these pre-made templates, or they can customize them, but you're able to generate all these different kinds of graphs and charts. And as you can see within that, there are maps. So as part of each category, you can customize the templates on top of the options that are already available. So the possibilities are endless. And because we are talking about maps today, I want to show you just some of the map templates that are currently available within in Flourish. And we're not going to get to all of them, but I think this will give you some really great ideas. So this is the different marker maps that are available. They call this category marker maps. You can add different icons and place markers. So we saw that this was possible to do in Google Earth, but this is just another option that, that can have a whole different look. So the example you're seeing here, the bigger view, it's a very simple map using what they call the emoji map template. And I made this one recently with a team to show some different provincial parks in Canada. And as you can see, when you click through, we added icons and photos for the user to see at the different locations. This is the back end, I guess you could call it, of that map. And it looks like a spreadsheet, and it works just like a spreadsheet. So you can import spreadsheets directly into Flourish to build these visualizations. Or if they don't have a lot of data, you could work directly in the tool itself. What you're going to want to take note of is that at the top, there's this toggle from preview to data. So preview is to see what you're working on, and data is the spreadsheet where you're inputting information to generate that visualization. So every template in Flourish has this preview and data toggle, and you're going to be wanting to look at what you're working on as you're working on it. Of course, depending on the complexity of your visualization and the different kinds of data you want to display, this could get more and more detailed, which of course can get more and more complicated. So if it is your first time working with visualizations, I recommend just starting with something more simple with a few lines of data like this. Get comfortable, and then you can build from there. So here are some other maps that are available in Flourish. There are different 3D maps. You can see the options within this category along the top of the slide. The larger example is what they call a point map. And it shows the rise, this example shows the rise of Airbnbs in Istanbul. So a 3D map like this is useful for visualizing large geographic data sets over a period of time. And they're quite beautiful. And while there are lots of other ones to explore, here's a final one from Flourish for now. This is a category called Connection Globe, and it's a 3D option, and it helps visualize links between different parts of the world. So the example we're seeing on the screen now is showing imports and exports by country and year, and it's an interactive element for a user to click and select the different locations and years, pardon me. So this could also be useful for visualizing data like migration patterns or maybe flight patterns. So if you're interested in trying Flourish, you can do so right now. It is another free tool. You do have to create an account, and it's worth mentioning that all accounts are public by default, something to be aware of as you create your first visualizations. But journalists are eligible for a free upgrade. So that would allow you to keep your projects private, and it does give you access to some other features. So if you're interested in that journalist upgrade, simply have one of the members of your team go to the site on your screen, flourish.studio/newsrooms. And once access is granted to an upgraded account, then it can be applied to not just you, but the different members of your team and newsroom. And with that, we are at the end of today's presentation. So thank you so much for taking the time to join live or to watch back. I do want to note, of course, there are other live sessions coming up. And here's the website again where you can register or find any of the recordings from the past few weeks. And don't hesitate to get in touch with any questions or to book personal trainings for you and your newsroom. And also, if you make any maps, I'd love to see them. So here's how to get in touch with me and any other members of the team. I'll leave this up for a while, but thank you again and have a great day. And I hope you'll join me again for another GNI Live.